is finally here, and create some characters. I've had a play with the adventure in the back, and well, glad about this. Slightly feeling sad that I didn't get a physical copies, but I'm sure they'll be available on TTRPG at some stage. So spoilers out of the way. Now let me explain what Blacklight is. It's a Shadowdark expansion, so you are going to need a copy of the core rulebooks for Shadowdark, but it allows you to play. It's a modern setting, or a fantasy setting, or a dreamland setting. It's whatever you want it to be. But in reality, it's a modern setting where arcs have opened up. Stargates, we could call them. X-Files type episodes. You work for an agency. Black Ops things. It's very much in the vein of Delta Green, The Laundry, The X-Files, that sort of thing. And you are basically stopping outer world events from taking place, say sort of rifts in reality where monsters and creatures are coming through, say, and you can there's arcs that you can actually enter and send the players through to other domains. Absolutely brilliant, because say it's a modern setting. You're playing really sort of peak of physical fitness. Marines, special ops people, investigators, things like that have been recruited into this agency to go and protect the world. And I love these as TV series and shows and things like that. And so I saw this on Kickstarter. I think it was March. So I've been waiting every month. I've been, when's it coming? When's it coming? And here it is. It's finally here. Well, PDF. It's not available for everyone. So there's going to be no links at the start of the video, but I will embed links when you can pick this up on DriveThruRPG. Because if you're a fan of modern settings with special ops people and Stargate and X-Files and say Delta Green, any of those sort of books, games, TV shows, there is also an element. There's one of the characters that really feels. I'm sure he was called Snake out of Metal Gear Solid, and I'll come on to that. But you've got magic in here as well. So you've managed to develop magical powers, so you can play mage type casters, and there's new psionics. So say I'll put the links if you're going to pick this up. But as I always do, let's just get into the book. I have got a couple of negatives, which, I'm going to start with. The front cover, I like most of it, but it's not a style for me. But art is, in essence, that, isn't it? It's some people love art, some people don't. I'm not a massive fan of the front cover, but I'm a massive fan of everything else. Most of the things that are included inside. So it comes in at 171 pages, so it's quite a large book. There's a lot in here for the fact you're going to also need the core rulebook. And one of the reasons there's a lot in here, I think it's to do with layout. And I know what Victor has done and why he's done it this way, but I'll show you as we go through. So here we've got this Blacklight Institute field manual. It is done as a manual, so it's the sort of thing that you would give to anyone, a new recruit. Here you go and read this, and that's the way it's all set out here, and we're going to sort of see it as you go through. It's all black and white throughout, and so the only real color, I'm sure there's no more color in it, but we'll double check as we go through. So it's written, edited, and layout by the Scrying Dutchman, and art here is by Nolan Collins. And we're going to get into, obviously, you got your initial thank yous and top secret files and stuff, but table of contents, book's very well laid out. I'll give it that. It's going to start out with setting information, so the background to the world and all that. We're then going to get into the play mode, so your new ancestors. Well, the ancestors is interesting, actually. I've got a theory on where you're going to go with this because of something we're going to talk about later in the book. We've then got some of the new rules in here, how to play, earning XP, equipment, because there's no carousing in here, as you'd imagine, because, you're special ops. You're not going to go out whining and dining and, going to a pub or inn to go and get experience. We've then got the 10 new classes in here, then some new backgrounds, training, which is the replacement for carousing. We've got 30, nearly 40 pages of weapons, armor, modifications, attachments, utilities. We'll then get into 13 pages of the psionics, which is incredibly well laid out. I wish more books would lay out, because it's laid out by tier, which from a player's point of view, is a lot easier. Almost 40 pages of foes and 4 other factions for the players to interact with. Well, maybe murder. We've then got some example artifacts, magic items, sort of specific to this world. And then we've got an adventure. I'm not going to be showing any of the adventure because I want to run it, and I want to run it on my channel, and I want to run it live. And this isn't out yet, fully available. So depending on when I run the adventure, I kind of don't want anyone that watches this review to be able to see what's going to be in the adventure. I'll explain a little bit about the adventure when we get to the adventure. All of the maps for the adventure are included, which is also making me think I really, it's going to be a lot easier to run because the creator includes maps. Half the work's there for the games master, if you're going to run it. So I'll run it on a VTT, and I'm just hoping I can run a game live and talk, so I might pre-record it and not do it live. I'm not sure, but I definitely want to run the adventure, which obviously is a big thing for me. So the setting information, it basically starts in the Second World War. A lot of these do, where obviously trying to gain advantage against the Axis. The sort of allies come together, they sort of try and find supernatural advantage they can get over the Nazis. Then in 1944 they stumble across a Axis warehouse that is full of supernatural entities. So we've got here this Nazi Baal. It goes well, and the Allied forces manage to defeat the Nazis, but unfortunately a rift is opened, and this is where they sort of discover what's going on. So over the next few years, well, sort of 50, 60 years, the Blacklight Institute, which is where the players will be, that's where they're employed to go out on all these missions for. It's a secret organization that is basically trying to protect Earth from all these outer world and extra-dimensional issues and problems. And that may be either just closing the rift, or more importantly, going through the rift and taking things on. But so if you look at the next page, it then talks about the ARC events and the different types of events here. So ARC events, alternate reality convergences. That is in essence. So when we're talking about ARC in here, it's just some alternate reality that's going to go on. And they will happen there's basically three different types of things. So you've got the incursion event, where something otherworld comes down or through an event. We've got the gateway event, where a portal will open up to a new realm, so the players will actually go through that realm. Or we've got these they'll go from class 1 to class 5. Class 4 and class 5 have never happened yet. They're just theoretical, but it's all based on the size of the event, and they call it a bleed. So a minor dimensional bleed confines a small area like a single building or its immediate surrounding. So they do know the size, but basically, obviously, the larger it gets. So if you get a class 2, it becomes a small town. Class 3, which is the largest one that's ever happened so far, is a major town. But 4 goes up, so it's theoretical, like a large city, and 5 is global. So this is what the players are doing. They're basically going out, stopping all these sort of bleeds that take place, try and confine it, go through other dimensional things, trying to find, new equipment, close the gateways, or just stop other things coming in, and like the full-on incursion into the planet. We then get 2 pages of realms, and I actually sat down with Victor at the time of the Kickstarter and had an interview with him, which was great fun meeting him. And it suddenly dawned on me what this game was, which has made me definitely back it. I say, in essence, this becomes very Stargate, and I love SG-1's TV series. I thought it was brilliant. I like the film. And this is going to allow the players or the games master to do this. And this sort of gives you an example. So they could go through an arc or have the arc, creatures from this event. So, for example, Dragonland, a high fantasy world inhabited by archetypical creatures from legend and literature. Orcs, elves, that's just one example. Kind of a fairyland. So witches, werewolves, trolls. Hellgate, a nightmarish hell of fire and brimstone, biblical depictions of hell. Hiveworld, a sprawling organic labyrinth of tunnels and chambers. They've got this like prison world, a world just covered in dense fog. Any horror film, any fantasy, any sci-fi genre, futuristic, whatever. So we've got time warps in here, so they go back into an alternate reality, and you can run this as like a series of one-shots, TV events. Again, Stargate Atlantis. However you want to run this, I just absolutely love it. There's so much in here to allow a games master to just create whatever you want. If you want to run it just straight normal, stay on Earth, have people come down, deal with it that way. I love the idea of sending my players off and just sticking them in, back in time, things along those lines. Talks about dealing with the arc events, how the players will deal with them. I've pretty much covered that. And what they're going to be doing when they go into some of the arcs or go near where the rifts are, they need to use this. Well, initially they're going to use a portal scanner, which is going to find the issue or the problem. And then they're going to need to take this nullifier, which will basically close down the rifts. Players themselves are going to be part of a team, and Victor has given this D20 roll of rather silly but on point names. So, like, there is every type of sort of person here, like Scully, Doom, Team Ash, Freeman. Some of them I was like, I'm not actually sure. Winchester's obviously is supernatural. We've got Mulder in here, Constantine, Blair Witch, Vorpal. I just love it. Come up with your own or roll a D20. All of these are absolutely on point. I ran the Stargate role-playing game for quite a long time, and that was kind of boring in names because it was just like SG1, SG2, SG3. Yeah, use fun names, and the players will then learn. But it does mean that you can have set up different teams, and the players, you can all get them to create multiple players to have specific teams for specific goals. And so you can send out the different teams. I just like the idea of building this whole world around the sort of Blacklight Institute. Chapter 2 is going to get into how to play, so it's up to you which modes you use. It does recommend, I say, these should be familiar to Shadowdark people because, it's got the mode section in there, but Blitz, Chaos, Deadly, or Fatality, and also include the Grinder mode. Ancestry. This is a human-centric world. However, if you want to play a meta-human, you can. You've gone off to different worlds. You're going to have difficulties wandering around some of the dimension worlds, but then, if you look like Teal'c, put a hat on. Actually, Spock used to wear a hat as well, didn't he, when he was on Earth to hide his ears? So yeah, you could allow. I personally, if I'm going to do a campaign for this, I'm going to make everyone be human initially. Then as they discover other races and things like that, I think that's how I'm going to allow it to build it in. Everyone should know English because it's an English-centric institute. Obviously, if you want to play it in whatever language because you're local, then absolutely fine. But the players can learn new languages during downtime. So downtime is the action that happens in between missions. And they can just roll an intelligence DC 18 to try and pick up a new language. Alignment, the institute picks its members carefully and it expects all players to be neutral or lawful for obvious reasons. However, a few chaotic people have got in. And as we'll see later on with some of the rival factions, that's probably where, if you want to do a more chaotic version of it, I think you could easily adapt this with some of the other factions that are in the back of the book, if that's so how you wanted to do. So carousing, yep, just says here, carousing, it just doesn't make sense. We have got this new training rules. Light, to give the dark light feel, most of the worlds that the players are going to go on to, torches don't last longer than about an hour. Makes sense. Electronic devices also have issues with things like power grids and stuff. So whether you're using sort of TVs, computers, more modern things like scientific experimental equipment, there is a chance that's going to fail. So it does sort of say here that the players need to carry a variety of batteries and battery packs with them for things like flashlight, night vision goggles and stuff, because it still wants to give that feel of Shadowdark, because if you can wear night vision goggles with an 8-hour battery life, it kind of gets rid of that little bit of the danger of the darkness. But I think Victor deals with it perfectly in here. Also swapping out batteries as well, full round action. So when they do go, like in Shadowdark, you've got to go and do something about it. You're either at disadvantage for everything or losing an action. Experience is done because there's no real treasure to go and find. There are artifacts that the players are going to find, but you are going to get experience from doing a variety of things like rescuing survivors, rescuing VIP survivors, securing a portal. But the big part is going to be shutting down the arc event. So if you ever do get a level 5 one, that's the whole world being taken over, you're going to get 25 XP. Armory points replaces currency, so you don't need any money because you work for the Institute. If you need something, you ask for it, or you're automatically given it in your free starting equipment or equipment that you find while you're out adventuring. But the other thing that AP can be used for is training. So, and we'll get onto the training section once we get into it. So as you earn experience, it's mirrored for AP. So if you get 10 XP for over a few sessions, you're going to have 10 AP or armory points to requisition new equipment, items, things like that, or you can spend it on training. And training is a way that you're going to get increased abilities on skills. Distances, we've got 2 new distances here. So we've got long and extreme. So you get, so close, near and far should sound familiar, but long distance is sort of like the length of the distance of a rifle most rifles can go to, and the extreme is beyond that. In general, that's only going to be sniper rifles that are going to be able to do things along those lines. Weapon proficiency, you need to be proficient in the category of the weapon. If you're not, you're at disadvantage. Should seem very familiar to anyone that's played Shadowdark before. Archaic weapons, so you are going to find things like swords and daggers and short swords, but it does say if you're proficient in combat knives and machetes, you should allow the players to be deemed proficient in it. Obviously, if they pick up a bastard sword and they've never played the bastard sword just because they have a machete, no, that's going to be a disadvantage. We've got jamming for weapons in here. So with the firearms, they are going to jam, and there's more chance of them jamming if you're firing with burst or auto. We'll get onto that once we get into combat, because once we get into the combat rules and the equipment, this is where it really shines. This is shining a lot anyway. Firing into melee and firing at melee range is quite interesting. So firing into melee, so if you've got one of your friends or someone that you'll need to be protecting, firing into melee, that's going to be at disadvantage because there's a chance you're going to hit them. There's also, on a failure, you may, if you're a games master, I would, you're going to have a random chance that you're actually going to hit your own, your player. And then firing at melee. So if you are in melee combat, this game's just going to have you firing at disadvantage. Dual wielding, your first weapon is normal. Your second weapon, your offhand, like John Woo, it says here. I actually read that as John Wall because, dyslexia. That was John Woo, of course. Firing the offhand, again, is at disadvantage as well. And you can use firearms as melee weapons. You can just donk them on the head with your firearms, or ram the butt into their face, and they're going to take a D3 damage. When we look at gunfire and explosions, obviously gunfire and explosions make a lot of noise, well, especially explosions. And there's just some little rules in here. So whether you're gunfire, suppressed weapons, energy weapons, or explosions, whether it's unsafe, risky, or deadly areas, there's going to be more of a chance of actually having a random encounter from the noise you're actually making. Right, we then get to look at the 10 new classes in here. So the first up is the Assault, which is so it's all weapons, all armor. This is your special forces trained close quarter combat specialist. Who's going to get additional bonuses for fighting in close quarter combat, very good at breaching doors, things along those lines. We then get your Basher. This is your bigger, stronger, and he's got a D10 hit points. You don't get many D10 hit points here. So these are the agents that close combat, they're basically good at smashing through doors. They're going to get advantage on strength and brute force rolls, an additional +1 to brawling and fighting. The Cleaner wasn't what I was expecting. This is your sort of Snake from Metal Gear Solid. This is your Infiltrator and Assassin. These only get a D4 hit points. They need to stay away, but they get all these things like silent killing, wonderful ability to take down. And if they're on their own, they're going to get, plus bonuses to AC and things like that. They're going to get some melee, some machine guns, pistols, grenades, C4 and mines. So yes, they're not sniper rifles. They're in infiltrate, get in, and silently kill anything if anyone catches them. So the first of the magical classes in here, so we do have 3, is the Esper. So these are individuals that have developed a powerful extrasensory ability called psionics. They still get some weapons, D4 hit points, because they do get all the way up to knowing 4 different spells. So I sort of class these as a full caster. Wisdom is the stat for casting their psionics on. And they're also going to have advantage to checks related to mental phenomena and psychic abilities in here. But yeah, it's all the way up to 5th level, and some of the 5th level are horribly. I'll show them when we get to the psionics. So Exorcist is another one of the caster types. So they're only going to get maximum knowing 3. But in essence, this is the priest class, and it does say, all the spells that are available to them are the priest spells from the Shadowdark core rulebook. Again, they're going to be using wisdom to cast the spell, but they get these additional faithful, so they gain advantage to checks involving religion and spiritual institutes. And they're going to gain a bonus spell, Protection from Evil, which is why I think it's 3 here, because obviously they gain a bonus one. Once they get to 5th level, they're going to get another bonus spell known as well, Rebuke Unholy. The Fixer is the face, so he is the charismatic member of the party that if things go wrong or they need to gather information, most of the other classes aren't very good at talking to each other, new people. So they say this face, they're going to gain advantage on social manipulation, persuasion, interpersonal relationships. He knows a lot of people, they can use charisma checks to find out, influence over politicians and finding out additional information. And then they get this wonderful failure to communicate power. If an attempted reaction check is met with hostility, the Fixer may immediately draw a melee weapon or pistol to attack the creature of their choice. This is done before initiative is resolved. So if all else goes wrong, they don't have to waste an action drawing their weapon. Brilliant. They're like, it's the Han Solo negotiating. We then get the investigator. So he's probably got some sort of background in, police work along those lines. So these are the people that are going to gather the information, the evidence as they're going through, the forensic scientists. Again, only a D4, light armor, medium armor. 1 bonus language, but they're going to get additional checks for things like interpreting clues, conducting witness interrogations and things like that. Very good at studying the area, and they get a bonus on intuition. They also get a really handy, do you feel lucky? Attacks the investigators with a pistol at close range, deal 2 points of additional damage. So the Occultist is the final of the spellcasters. So this is like scholars, rogues, powerful mystics. So these in essence are wizards out of the Shadowdark core rulebook. D4 hit points, light armor. Their spellcasting, as you'd expect, is going to be based on intelligence. And they are, full caster. They go all the way up to tier 5 spells. But when they're picking spells, they pick them from the Shadowdark core rulebook or any of the other books. We then get the Recon Sniper, which as you'd expect has got sniper rifles in its weapons. It's a D8 hit points, so they are a little bit tough, but they're very good at infiltrating, good at ambushing. When they are doing an ambush and they're shooting from far range, their crit goes from a 19 and 20, which is always 10% chance of getting a crit. They get +1 attack bonuses when using a sniper rifle, so they're just going to be hanging out miles away or however where they are to sort of help the party out that way. The Specialist, which is your technician and scientist. So these are your nerds that are going to be there with your D4 hit points, but they're going to +1 bonus to do anything technical. So, but they are going to have to specialize. So whether they go scientist, engineer, hacker, medic, sapper, or driver. So it does mean you can have, like I was saying about having different types of parties there that the games master might send out, so the players might roll up multiple characters to go and do different types of missions in here, so they are going to sort of specialize down a certain route. And then finally we get support or heavy weapons. BFG. So all weapons, all armor, D10 hit points. They have advantage checks of a physical nature, like heavy lifting, variety of things like that. They are when using shotguns, they've got more chance of actually hitting other people. Also, they get to use their strength modifier instead of dexterity when attacking with heavy weapons, which actually that's a huge benefit. We've then got new backgrounds, as you'd imagine, from things like spy, scholar, doctor. The players can roll. I'm always up for randomly rolling, but if they anything more specific, just let them pick because it fits in their background a little bit better. Training is, I don't like this. I'm just going to say, I was like, how do I explain the training? Okay, let me explain why I like, in essence, what's going on here. So this is where you're going to pay AP costs. So, for example, if you want to be a shotgun course, you're going to roll your dexterity. You're going to look to get a DC 14, and it's going to take 2 weeks of downtime, and it's going to cost you 15 of your AP here. So you can either request new weapons or upgrades to your weapons, or you can spend it training. I love what's going on here because, once you do the shotgun course, here we go, shotgun course, +1 to attack with shotguns. So you're going to get better with shotguns. What I don't like, and and several games do this and I don't like it, is that you're going to spend 2 weeks of your character's life, downtime, you're going to make a DC 14 check, you're going to fail it, and you're going to fall behind the other players if they all succeed. Because some of these things are 18s, which is a really difficult DC. Now, just say if you fail it, you're going to get 50% of your AP cost back, and you're going to get half of the time back. I don't understand how you get half the time back after, unless you're flunking out halfway through the course, but you then get an additional +1. Now, I'm not saying I don't like the idea of the training. What I don't like is that random roll for players, because if you're unlucky or you feel unlucky, sometimes you can just spend time and never get better. Because if things go, I know eventually you're going to pass, but if 2 or 3 sessions go by in your downtime and everyone else has got, +3 or +4 across different things in total, and you're still not, you're going to feel like you're falling behind. So the way I'm going to run this, I'm still going to keep the training going. I'm going to just make the DC save check, and if you pass the check, you get half your AP cost right. You're automatically going to pass after the period of time, because I don't like players being punished for bad rolls, and that in essence is what you're going to do. It's great what's in here, but it's just that roll. And so yeah, because and different ones cost different times, so the player's going to have to sort of work out. Like, here we go, we've got combat swimming. What does combat swimming do? Combat swimming, +1 bonus to skill checks related with swimming and diving. Include the use of the scuba gear, rebreathers, and related equipment. So, because things like that could come up. And the other reason I don't like the check, because this very thing here. So, combat swimming, for argument's sake, is leaders may decide that we need to send a group off to a specific world that is an aquatic world. So they then spend, what was it? How long's combat swimming? Combat swimming here, 6 weeks. They send you all off on a 6-week course to go and learn combat swimming. And at the end of it, one player fails it. So they go, okay, we're going to now another 6 weeks of downtime. It just doesn't work for me. Everyone passes. You either spend the AP, or if you succeed, you get half the AP. So you can go and get decent equipment. So you're getting a reward here as opposed to a punishment. Say, like it in principle. Just that's the way I'm going to play this bit. Equipment. This is 30 pages of Victor just loving equipment, guns, firearms, and everything. So all the weapons, so you're going to have to request them with AP, which is your armory points, which we've just spoken about. So if you don't want to, skill up, so to speak, you can get additional weapons beyond what you're actually given. And you're going to want to do that because you can make weapons lighter, you can make weapons more accurate and things. So you'll have your own character's weapon over time that he always takes to our missions. So we've got full auto. So if you want to go, there's details here on what goes on with burst or controlled shoots or spray, suppressing fire. We've got versatile weapons, which you can hold in one hand. So if you want to go full on John Rambo, and just holding out machine guns in one hand. S is for sniper, SP is for spread. We've also got, there's a loading ability here. So armor isn't really kept hold of. It's just you're going to do, after shooting and certain aspects, you're going to be making a D6 roll for loading. So if it's got a 1, it's a 1 in 6 chance that you're going to run out of ammo. So I'm happy with that. A lot of Shadowdark modern games use this. It's just easier than counting ammo. We have also got energy weapons. So E is energy weapons. So the Institute has found high-tech weapons. They've got slightly more chance of, malfunctioning because obviously. But we've then got a list of weapons here. So you've got melee pistol, submachine gun, shotgun, assault rifles, a lot of sniper rifles, all the way up here. So we've got this Black Nail, which is like a futuristic gun, which does 4d10 damage. And it uses rail ammo. Then got machine guns, blast weapons, so smoke grenades, things like that, all the way down to flamethrowers, which is against the Geneva Convention, but hey ho, you're a secret organisation. And then a cold lance in here. It then breaks down each of the weapons by description and title. So you can, for anything from these tables in here, you're going to be able to just go and find out a little bit more detail, and it'll have a little bit of more information about it as well. I like the fact there's some art in here. It's sometimes you can look at sort of lists of weapons and it is a little bit, lacking in art. So, but even the blast weapons here, we've got things like flashbangs, details, exactly how they work, because sometimes just looking at stats isn't going to give you the full feel. So the flashbang is a stun grenade that deafens and blinds, affects the creatures in blast radius of 1 round. A UV light variant, so it's going to give +2 AP. So if you buy the UV light variant, it's +2 AP. It deals a D6 damage to creatures vulnerable to sunlight. Vampires are coming up. Uh, Firearms attachments, so we can have things like attachments, bayonets, suppressors, red dot lights, extended magazines, underbarrel shotguns, and again, it's going to give you the full description of the game effects and the additional costs for those. Modifying your weapons, so if you if you want to specifically have a weapon, you can make it lighter, you can improve the reliability, so it's going to less chance to jam. You can have additional attachments on it, or you can have a biometric lock, so if you drop it, someone else picks it up, they can't use it. And you can booby trap it as well. Different types of ammunition. So you will, well, you don't in essence keep a track of ammo, but obviously once you reload, you're going to need additional ammo to take with you. But if you don't want just normal, boring machine gun ammo, how about armor piercing, or rubber bullets, or tracers, or silver bullets? Because, you know, again, vampires, ultraviolet bullets, vampires, or dragon's breath bullets here, which it's fire, isn't it? So additional ammo here as well. And then it just carries on down this page all the way to napalm, miscellaneous bullets in here, and blessed napalm. Let's just have a quick look at Dragon's Breath, which Dragon's Breath rounds, oh, okay, so shotguns to a 10-foot wide to near range, dealing the weapon's damage. Additional, creatures hit by the flame must succeed a D12 dexterity check or catch fire, taking a D4 damage. Okay, and I want to look at this blessed napalm. This napalm is for use for the Institute's flamethrower and has been mixed with blessed oils and variety of alchemical compounds, allowing it to deal damage against certain creatures otherwise immune to mundane fire. Counts as dealing magical damage. I suppose, yeah, that's why you would have a flamethrower, because that's going to make the support quite interesting, isn't it? The big, strong guy with the, blessed napalm flamethrower. Oh, I love this game. I really do love this book. We then get armor, so different types of armor, which obviously, different slots, and they're going to affect your ability to, whether swim and stealth. But we get this wonderful thing on the end, max upgrades. So these are upgrades you can add to your armor. So, obviously we've got all the descriptions for the armor, but what are armor upgrades, you say? They're things like ammo pouches, bite or claw proofing, ballistic proofing. So, additional to reduce damage from different types of weapon, fireproofing, cold proofing. So you can actually go and take specific armor for specific missions in here, which is always really good. And then finally, the catch-all utilities in here for the, things like containment collars, flares, flashlights, gas masks, portable generators, portable jammers, things along those lines. The main two, obviously, you're going to need on a lot of missions is the nullifier here and the portal scanner. So let's just get on the nullifier. So perhaps the most important piece of equipment used by the Institute's agents, outfitted with a small vial of exceedingly rare red mercury. The advanced device, known simply as the nullifier, is used by the Blacklight team to shut down the arc events and open transfer of portals. Shutting down an arc event takes a D4 rounds per class level. For example, if it's class 1, it's a D4 round to shut down. If it's class 2, it's 2D4 rounds to shut it down. So opening the transfer portal will take a single round. The first nullifier required by the team is free. Subsequent nullifiers cost 3 HP for each. And you're going to need a battery pack to keep it powered too. So yeah, again, equipment that you think you are sent in. It's one of the beauties, isn't it, I think, of Shadowdark is, I've never been that interested as a games master of keeping track of equipment because I've been too lazy, I think. But I love these sort of things of asking the players exactly what they want, and when you go through that arc, that's all you've got on you. You need the ability to close it down, be able to come home, and then whatever weapons you've got, whatever armor. If you're unlucky, you're going to run out of ammo quite quickly, so you're going to have to find new things. Then get a section on vehicles and vehicle-mounted weapons like light machine guns, auto cannons, and things. But all the rules are in here as you'd expect for specifically attacking crews or weak spots, because all vehicles are going to have hit points and AC. AC is quite high because it actually represents the amount of armor it takes as well, not necessarily also the difficulty to hit it. We've got rules for ramming, which is going to depend on the successful ram attack, will depend on the speed as well. And then we've got attacking from vehicles, so if you want to hang out a vehicle, you can. All the vehicles are also going to have a certain amount of cargo slots as well, which is slots for putting equipment. And then finally, crew here. So each vehicle will have an amount of crew that it can carry, and if it's got a number in brackets, that is the amount of people that can be carried by giving up the vehicle's cargo. Then get the list of all the vehicles that are available in here, as well as some Blacklight specific vehicles, and then the full-on descriptions as we go over the next couple of pages. Chapter 7 deals with psionics, and this is the spells for the Esper class. And as you'd expect, a roll of a 20 may do double damage, things along those lines. A roll of a 1 is going to cause a psionic backlash. And they are separated out for tiers 1 and 2, 3 and 4, and 5 respectively. And I like this. I like the layout of the psionics being out by tiers when the player's going to look at it. So we've got things like psychometry here, pyrokinesis. You can set people afire with doing a d4 damage, but every tier has got telekinesis lift. So this goes up to tier 5, and the initial one at lift 4 is only £20, and it'll go all the way up to £1,000 once we get to tier 5. But we've got things like mind probe here, so extract memories from a touch creature. Every round of focus allows for extracting a new memory. Most of this is all about, as you'd imagine, psionics messing with people's minds. But once we get to tier 5, they are nasty. You've got like this mental rewrite where you can rewrite the creature's personality and core beliefs, or you can erase yourself entirely. So they're not even aware of who you are or anything that you ever even existed. Actually looks like a lot of fun, the psionics. Chapter 8 then is foes, and I say this is going to give us 4 rival factions, as well as then a turn of NPC. So first up, we've got E-Division. So these are a Russian agency that, as you can imagine, are pretty much based around sort of psionics and finding out more stuff for personal gain and possibly world domination. We then get the current assignment for the Blacklight operatives, and E-Division represents a persistent existential threat. If encountered, its agents and allies will be terminated at will. Gives you an examples here. So we've got the lower, the lowest of the goons, which is the torpedo, all the way to the rookie psychonaut, then veteran psychonaut. The Silent Lodge, so these are a level 5 occult conspiracy, but approach with caution. So we don't need to kill these in the current assignment because they are elusive, deeply embedded. These have existed since at least the 15th century, and they are sort of like a cult of mages that stay hidden behind the scenes, that sort of want to influence the world, and they use their magical abilities to do that. So they may be good, they may be evil. You will find out as adventures go on. So, but yeah, the Blacklight operatives are not to just murder these. These are, they are just to sort of observe them from afar, but kind of, approach with caution, it does say. And they will have Lodge Acolytes, Lodge Wizards, and then a Lodge Master. We then get Odessa, which is this. See, I play a lot of Cthulhu, Acton Cthulhu, and this very much feels like this. So these, after World War II, these are the Nazi regime carried on going with the Third Reich, trying to find more supernatural stuff. And over the years, variety of artifacts that Blacklight are aware of keep going missing. So this is an out and out, a rival faction that is just out for themselves to sort of control the world. And the current protocol, the contact protocol, is terminate with extreme prejudice. If you ever encounter them, engagement should be lethal, uncompromising. Retrieval or destruction of their artifacts and technology is top priority. And you can see them. So we've got Death Troopers here, Death Trooper Commandos, Heavy Death Trooper, and then War Mage and Elite War Mage. So we've got 5 of these. So I think I'm going to be running these more often because I like the fact of it's just a nice rival, I think, to have. And then finally, we get the Majestic, or the Men in Black. These are a very similar agency to Blacklight. The Blacklight Institute started around the same time, but they've gone off in their own direction. And it kind of reads like they don't really know a lot about them, but it does talk here about its metahuman agents, colloquially referred to as Men in Black. So aliens, elves, dwarfs, anything can be metahuman. And when you look at the description of the Men in Black, the attack unit, an eerie silent operator in full body, their face is hidden by a gas mask. So we don't really know what's under them, which means the games master can have whatever they want, but the players are just to avoid them. They're not to hunt them down or kill them, and it's kind of just find out really what's going on. And then get a load of other NPCs here from, we're looking at humans initially, detectives, SWAT, gangsters, crime bosses, combat engineers, combat medic, all the way up to special forces. And then we're going to get into an idea of what the world should be like, or things that are going to come through these arcs. So we got this level 9 incredibly powerful vampire type people here. We got some revenants as well, Wendigo and Hollowed. Then get the outsiders, so those from outside of the court of Shadowdark, allowing outsiders to be known by the Institute. So void hounds, entities, rakes, tall ones, shard stalkers, gleams tyrants. Then we get a load of insectoids. So starship troopers, anyone, that sort of thing in here. So all the way up to a hive queen, and a brood host. Constructs are an amalgamation of machinery and flesh, which sounds really, really gross. Then we got sort of plants and fungi that the players can fight and interact with. And then finally, Chapter 9 is artifacts, which is broken down into levels 0 to 3, 4 to 6, 7 to 9, and 10 plus. And these are things so for example, when you find something, or it might actually be, on a dead body, let's say, then you're going to roll a d100 here, and you might find a worn teddy bear. So an old teddy bear squeaking happily when hugged, which you then, as the games master, is going to have to come up with. You could use this. There's stuff in the core rule book for Shadowdark. There's so many other books you could actually use to create sort of magic weapons. But anything with an asterisk here is given an example. So we'll look at the last candle. An old-fashioned white. So we look here at the last candle, an old-fashioned white candle, flames seemingly internal, and it's got an asterisk, so we'll just go and pick that up here. Last candle. The last candle produces a dim light in a near-sized radius. The flame cannot be extinguished by mundane means. While standing within its glow, creatures gain advantage on checks and saves made to resist fear and effects. And all of them, all the way through to the level 10, have got some examples here to give you an idea of some magic items, or artifacts as this game calls. Finally then, we get the adventure, which is the last 30 pages of the book. So I'm not going to look at this because I really like the adventure. I really like most of what's in here. So I'm not going to show any of this, but it does include all the maps. And go and read the adventure yourself once the book is out, if you do pick this up. So I'm just going to come back to me and give you my final thoughts on this. Okay, so I've got a couple of niggles, obviously. I don't like the cover art. I also don't like, and I didn't mention this throughout the book, I don't like the layout of the book. So I'll just use this as an example. As a dyslexic, and I don't know whether it's dyslexic or what, I'm now used to the 2 paragraphs, or 2 lines per page sort of going down. Reading all the way across in the greyish background with the black writing, so it looks as a sort of coursework book, a guide for if you're going to come and join our agency. I think that's why it's been done this way. I personally don't like it. I don't like reading full length pages of text anymore. And because it's then just broken up with a little bit of a line, there's quite a lot. If I show you, there's a lot of text on the pages. I love what's in here. And I think, also when you look at the creatures, there's a lot of space. I think this could have been condensed down quite significantly in page count, but that's just me. Other people might like the fact that it's actually done like a proper work-based manual. And the training. So I'm just not a fan of random rolls to see whether, as a player, whether you get to receive a reward or not, or whether you wasted the 2 or 3 weeks. It just feels a little bit. So I've kind of said how I'd fix it, but that's it. That's my moans, because everything else is just bloody amazing. It's what I really hoped for in the book, because I say when I spoke to Victor, when I looked at the Kickstarter, I was like, I really hope this is Stargate, X-Files. But it means I can just, if I want to have a fantasy, I kind of want to run this like a Monster of the Week type thing. It's going to be a little bit more than, I wouldn't be able to do necessarily one-shots, but you can run it as that. And if you want the players, I love the idea of players with modern stuff going back in time or going in the future and just having the same characters. And so you can have more characters because there's a lot of choice in here. So if the players want to go and do something else, or create multiple different classes to go out, and eventually I'm going to introduce meta-humans is the plan. You know, if they go off to one of those sort of dragon lands, as it's called, and they find an elf, why not let a player be an elf if the elf is interested? You could set up a sort of Teal'c from a Stargate situation where he sort of comes through and helps. Just like it. I love it. The combat rules are really deep and sort of as you'd expect them to be. They're a lot more interesting than standard Shadowdark rules, because one of the issues I always had with 3.5 was when you actually get into and actually even the what was it? It was the Wizards of the Coast's Star Wars game. Hit points are a little bit. They feel funny when it comes to firearms, because you know, if you hit someone with a sword, normally your sword damage might go up as you get stronger and you get additional abilities and classes and stuff, which still makes Shadowdark relatively deadly because you don't get a lot of hit points. When I was playing with this with combat, I still think even when you're like level 7 or 8 or, you know, things like that, weapons are still going to do a lot of damage. They're still going to take a proportionate amount of hit points, so it's still going to feel deadly in essence. So, and the fact that you've got lots of different types of shooting, you know, like burst or concentrated fire, and you know, all these sort of explosions and the noises, it's really been well thought out and done. The 10 classes, I love the fact that the standard cleric type class and the wizard have been included. But I think I wouldn't want to play either of those. That psionic, the ability to really mess with people's minds, is really, really nasty. And as a player, I like nasty things. And as a games master, the fact that I can do those nasty things back to my players is brilliant. It's an absolutely amazing book. I'm so annoyed that I didn't back this physical copy. So once it is available on print on demand, I will update all my socials so everyone knows. I say all the links for this is down in the video description. Let me know if I'm being a bit harsh on the training. You know, that might be the sort of things that people actually like doing. I say it's not for me. So other than that, Victor, this is amazing. This is everything that I really hoped for. So I can't wait to see what you do from here. Thank you. It's great. And obviously, if you want to pick this up, let me know down in the comments below if you know what you like about it. And if you've enjoyed this video, like, share, subscribe to the channel. Come join my Discord, and I'll see you on the next one. Thank you for watching.